Good evening. Welcome back to another episode of Corner to Copa. I'm here with my co-host Coach, and this is the Windy City week. It's almost over. How you feeling, man?
Feeling good. Back from a little vacay with the fam up north. Hence why I'm wearing a Cubs jersey right now. I need to do some laundry, but don't worry, counted that with the Tigers Armed Services Appreciation hats. But finally was able to get to see them on TV because I was no longer in my area. So yeah, mostly the White Sox series, saw a little bit of the Cubs, but holy offensive outbursts. I mean, I felt like the week for them was, other than the 5-2 win, I believe Saturday night, either Friday or Saturday night. Saturday. This has been an all or nothing whole week for them between the two series in Chicago, which is kind of crazy. But we're 5 runs though. 5 runs has been the number, and they're still firing away at it. But the last two starts for Skubal, he's gotten almost 30 runs in 2 games. That's incredible.
Crazy.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what it is, but yeah, the Tigers start the week off losing 2 or 3 to the Chicago Cubs. They had a nice run output in that middle game that we won, and that was the no, that wasn't with Skubal, but we've got off to we did well in the White Sox series. We're going for the sweep tonight, which will which will bring us to 500 on the year. But yeah, there was a lot of positivity as far as hitting wise. Parker Meadows, pretty much when he has a good night, when he's setting the plate for everybody and he's having a good night, that tends to bode well for us. We already know what he's going to bring defensively. Trey Sweeney had his first home run in the second game of the Chicago Cubs series to straightaway center field. He gave that ball a nice ride. Cole Keith is on a pretty sizable hitting streak. I think he's at about 9-10 games in a row. So he has been solid, consistent, just hitting. I think he hit a home. I think he hit a home run in the White Sox series, but just a lot of hard. Yeah. Just a lot of hard line drives.
Dead center field too.
Yeah. The home run. Yeah. Another bomb to straightaway center field. I mean, it's looked a little bit like T-ball out there. Obviously, the White Sox are not winning many games, so we've had an opportunity to bat around. But Green and Carpenter have been solid constants at the top of the lineup. Scrappy play from McKinstry. He continues to get the job done. He had a home run. He's stealing bases. He's playing all over infield, outfield. I think he plays in left field tonight even. Been a rocky road series for the young guys. Jace Young and Sweeney have been kind of up and down. Dylan Dingler is really, really laboring right now, calling pretty good games, but not hitting very well right now. And then just the pitching has been steady for the most part, outside of a tough outing from Kenta Maeda and Joey Wentz, who those two guys just don't need to pitch on the same day. Like, I get the game was kind of out of reach by the time Maeda left, but it's just too much for our eyes to watch the two of them to go back to back. So, but outside of that, the back end of our bullpen has been pretty good. Will Vest, Foley, and Ty Holton, of course, who's been one of the better pitchers in all of baseball. So that's been very encouraging. But, just overall, the bullpen days, my boy Troy in the building. Yeah, he says, "What's up, guys? We are almost 500." And I'm reading that for the audio people because obviously they can't see the comments. But yeah, the bullpen days have been pretty good. The Salmons guy, the Brad Herter, Bo Brisky's been kind of getting, his ass handed to him a little bit, but we were able to bounce back from it, and that helps when you're scoring, nearly 10 runs, a game. That's gonna help things out. And as we talked backstage, Tarik Skubal didn't have a great start the other day. Gave up I think 8 hits, 3
He
earned.
was in trouble early the first few innings and sprinkled that pixie dust, I guess he had in his back pocket.
Yeah, but he ended up getting 14 runs that day or something like that. He's
yeah. Well, including 4 more in the ninth as well. I mean, by that point, it was still like 8-3, 9-3, and it set up similar to the game prior that we were at. That it's like, well, he sat so long in that 5th or 6th inning. Is it really worth bringing him back out? Which honestly, we would love to see him back out there for another inning, rack up more Ks. But yeah.
But yeah, and yeah, Kiter Montero, he's got a little bit of magic himself. You know, he somehow weasels out of some situations as well. Because he gets roughed up pretty bad, but he finds a way. I think he only gave up 2 earned runs in about 5 innings. So, you know, when it's all said and done, we get the W. You know, we'll worry about the rest, but he's at least giving us somewhat of a chance to remain in the ball game. And we just got to keep that offense going, because the bullpen has been pretty lights out as of lately, especially once you get to your Holtons, your Vests. Vest has transformed into what we wanted Alex Lang to be. I mean, I don't think he'll never have the swing and miss stuff outside of his fastball that Lang has, but when he comes in, he's shutting the door. He's getting those holds, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention Shelby Miller, who's having another great month.
He's had a few bang jobs where he's gotten rocked and inflated his ERA immensely. And I know we've touched on in previous episodes. We're not going to beat a dead horse. Obviously, he's been in some safe situations with some, question marks or acquisitive looks from a lot of fans. Like, what is this guy doing in a closing situation when there were other options, or frankly better options or more experienced options in that high leverage situation? But he has kind of shaken that off from weeks past, and he's kind of dialing it in here down the stretch, which is nice to see, given some of the other shellackings of the other cohorts of his bullpen posse have been enduring lately.
Yeah. And he's got a team option coming up, I believe, for $4 million. I would have thought that would have been a no-brainer to not pick that up. But at this point, hey, struck out the side his last outing. I don't know if that was yesterday or if it was the day before yesterday, but he's been looking good after getting trounced by the Royals in that one series and not recording an out and getting, I don't know what you said, the ERA was 27 or something.
Well, we're not recording an out and giving up runs. It just means an infinite ERA. And then I think the outing before that, he went 1/3 of an inning registered, 3 earned runs for like a crazy 81 or some wild high ERA just for that game. But yeah, definitely numbers that we will just put an asterisk right next to for now, and we'll just call that an anomaly going forward.
Absolutely. So that pretty much wraps up the week. One of the last things I did notice is that AJ Hinch has been letting some of his guys that he would normally platoon and swap out for their weaker, righty on righty, lefty on lefty. He's been kind of giving guys a chance a little bit. I think Young got a hit I think he got an RBI hit against a lefty not too long ago. And Andy Ibanez, that you see pictured if you're watching on the visual, hit a home run. He was originally pinch hitting to face a lefty, but later on in the game, Hinch left him in the game and he hit a 2-run home run. So giving these guys some opportunities, going against the analytics, everything that he stands for, and it's paying dividends for him. So maybe coach will let him hang around a little bit longer, but more than likely the movement is still fire AJ. I
don't know. I'll say the one odd one over the weekend was Kerry got pinch hit for by Jake after they changed pitchers. And there must be a rule change they made heading into this year in terms of the 9th inning, because the rule prior heading into 23 was the reliever had to face 3 batters minimum in that inning before they could be pulled. but there was a wild sequence of chess match, if you will, between the interim manager, Grady Sizemore, who still haunts me from his Indian days, against Hinch and his pinch hitting, because he pinch hit Rogers. They brought in a righty, and then he turned around and brought in McKinstry, who ended up hitting I think it was either home run or an extra base hit that drove in at least a couple. So it was that's an aspect that I miss of the late inning chess match between arms and pinch hitters that we've known forever in baseball. But that wouldn't end up working out for him. But as we talked about online, as we can see in the stats and the updated standings, they haven't really moved the needle too much in terms of getting closer to be, quote, interesting, unquote. So, still hashtag fire AJ.
Yeah, and just to elaborate on the McKinstry situation, obviously he's got ice water in his veins as of lately. I think he's hitting like 370 or something this month. But it was a situation where they pinch hit originally they used Rogers to pinch hit for somebody. I can't remember who.
It was for Kerry Carpenter.
For Kerry Carpenter.
Yep.
And then they go to the righty, and then they pull Rogers back, bring McKinstry in, which is kind of a risky move. I mean, you just essentially just burn a pinch hitter for nothing.
And a defensive catcher replacement too for Dingler, who was starting that game. So you had
to keep
staff catchers. I don't know who their emergency catcher is, their third guy, but that would have been interesting.
Probably McKinstry, but
that'd be crazy.
But he plays everywhere else. But yeah, so they end up bringing in McKinstry, and McKinstry ends up getting the job done. There's a lot of guys that want to see him gone, but he just gets the job done. I mean, he plays everywhere. Javi's hurt now, so he was our second best shortstop. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if he's our second best shortstop, but he's played a lot of shortstop this year, and he does it all. He steals bases. He hits for power on occasion, and just as far as getting hits late in games, he gets the job done. But let's get to some of these comments. Troy's got some stuff to talk about here.
What's going on, Troy?
Why is it moving so slow? Troy says we have some good young guys. I think we need a guaranteed 100 RBI guy to go with Riley Green to really make us a division contender. Hopefully that can be Torque. Oh, woo!
Not happening.
It won't be Torque. Well, it's not looking good. It's just not looking good for Torque. You got a better chance of it being Kerry Carpenter than anything. Who else? Yeah, that's about it as far as
I think Torque's had 100 RBIs in the last 2 years, but that's about it.
well, Torque had about 70, 80 last year, but it's becoming more and more obvious that he can only get hits when it's low leverage situations. He'll sneak a home run late in games when we're down 8-2, or we were down 8-0, I think, and he got a home run against the Cubs on a mistake pitch, just a meatball where they're just like, if you can hit it, go ahead. I mean, I got some runs to spare. So, but yeah, his risk numbers, I haven't pulled them up recently, but they're not pretty.
Even so far this series against the Sox, I mean, how many at bats did we text back and forth? We saw him just take strike three, either a sinker or fastball, middle low, middle. I'm like, that's the pitch he can hit consistently at this level. And now all of a sudden he's, I don't know, second guessing.
He's out there. Yeah, because
when it matters, he's nowhere to be found. Basically,
that's the moral of the story. But yeah, he's just There's just certain pitchers that are just like, nah, there's just no way you're taking that on with 2 strikes. He doesn't really chase outside the zone very often, but at this point it's to a fault because you gotta be hacking with 3 strikes. Like I can understand guys like Young and Sweeney trying to figure out the strike zone and dealing with how the respect they may have gotten in AAA, they're not going to get in the major leagues. But a guy like Torque's been around for too long to be making mistakes like that.
And to Troy's point, I've mentioned at least maybe a couple weeks ago, but in terms of off season, if we wanted to, really add some proven power or RBI production, man, I would love Pete Alonso but yeah, among others, we'll later on heading into September, we'll take a deeper dive look into who will be available free agency and any speculation in terms of open spots they could show up with we'll call it a tier 1 or tier 2 veteran in that case. But but as it stands right now, Torkelson hasn't shown much consistency to be a 100 RBI guy this season.
Right. Gotta put it together for a full season. And this season he's done it for about maybe a week. Got one controversial comment from Troy. We're gonna let that breathe and then and we're gonna get to the first break. But here's the comment right here. He said AJ is one of the best managers in the league. It's the roster that is lacking in talent that is costing us. We're gonna let that breathe, and we'll be right back on the other end of that.
Oosa.
Deep pause. Okay. All right. We're gonna allow. Well, actually, Coach, you care to speak on that before you get into the roster updates?
I would like to follow. I'm going to follow up with that and just like a question to Troy. What metrics are you using for quote best manager? Because win-loss record, he's got a losing record in Detroit, and you throw out the last 2 years of Houston when they were clearly using their trash can sign stealing cheating scandal. He still has a losing record minus those 2 years in Houston at the back end, including the World Series year. So I don't know. I've seen him and Foster's agreed for the most part, maybe not all of them, but I feel like he has cost them between 6 or 8 games with just very unusual moves at weird times, including lack of moves at certain times where particularly pertaining to starting pitching in that 5th, 6th inning where we've talked about for most of summer. Skubal has gotten better about it. But some of these guys, and naturally, I think along the league, though, in some greater spectrum numbers, most starting pitchers, unless you're a top 20 guy, top 15 guy, like a Sale or a Cole or, Kershaw back in the day, guys that are perennial Cy Young contenders or guys that can go out and throw a no-hitter in any given day, they do struggle the third time through the lineup. And I was watching a little bit of the Baltimore-Houston Sunday night game last night, and the starter for Baltimore, same thing. First time, 2 times through the lineup, I don't think they were hitting better than 2 1/4 against him combined. But when he got to the third time through the lineup, you're talking like, 330 to 370 average. That's some exposure there. Guys are starting to tie me down and everything. But there were times where, guys like Maeda should have been pulled. Skubal, 1 or 2 times should have been pulled after throwing 25, 30 pitches in an inning and giving up a couple extra base hits, a walk, and then a home run. Next thing you know, whatever lead he had was either gone or down to 1 run. But I haven't seen enough improvement of the guys that they've had since either day 1 or early in the year, well before the All-Star break, to really say, there's a lot of progression being made from him and his staff. Guys like, Cole Keith has gotten better defensively slowly since the All-Star break because he had a fairly bad glove the first 3 months of the year. Torkelson, I watched him drop a fly ball down the first baseline that he had the whole way and then just bailed on it. And both right fielder and the second baseman looked at him like, what'd you do that for? He was under it. Just a lot. Again, platooning is a reason you're going to throw in a wrench too for some of these errors. Guys are playing different positions on different days, but that's his MO and his game plan for last year and this year. And I don't really see it overall as a successful approach, and therefore I really don't think I consider him one of the best managers. In fact, he's probably one of the worst managers right now as it stands.
I cannot remember what I was about to say. I mean, you know what? You mentioned that he struggled with going to the pen at the right times, but I do think that the fact that we've been handcuffed with the lack of starting pitching and going to those bullpen days, for some reason, I feel like it's helped some of his judgment, which I think it would be tougher just because you're pulling guys. The opener goes usually 1 inning, maybe 2.
Yeah.
So it's a lot more decision making to do, but for whatever reason, I felt like I've made less critiques of his substitutions under those elements than when he when he knew, okay, Reese Olson's going to go 5-6 and be solid. Flaherty's is going to go his whatever, Scooble's going to do his job. For whatever reason, it's helped him some. I don't know. Is that a Hinch thing, or is that just something that we've incorporated?
Post All-Star break and the injuries have forced him to do that on a much higher frequency over the last, we'll say, 6 weeks or so, with Mize and Olson really being the compounding factors after trading Flaherty out. So we've really only had 2 starters, legitimate starters, in Scooble and Montero since then. But and we'll it'll be on the transaction report here. But Ty Madden, as you mentioned, alluded to earlier, making his debut tonight. Guys, nothing to talk about. Guys got horrible minor league numbers. And overall has had a really bad minor league career. So I can't count him as a legitimate starter being called up because it's purely based out of necessity. And we talked about it over a month or 2 ago leading up to the deadline. If you trade Flaherty, can you just go out and sign a veteran guy, pay him for the last half of the year? If he's, prorated because he's older and he's supposed to get $3 million for the year, well, guess what? You're only going to pay him $1.5 million for the rest of the year just to plug a hole. But now here we are with this guy who had over a 6 ERA in Toledo, and he's starting tonight against the worst team in baseball. There's no promise that he's even going to get out of the first couple innings unscathed. So
you have to factor in that a lot of these guys that are performing well within these bullpen games had similar, I won't say similar numbers, because my Madden numbers have been pretty bad. But I don't know if it's the Chris Fetter effect or if it's just, I don't know, fluky numbers in the league they're in AAA. But some of these guys have fared pretty well where they didn't as much at the lower levels for whatever reason. It really doesn't make sense per se because of the level of talent we're talking about that they're jumping up to. But I'm not ready to just say, Madden's cooked.
Oh no, I'm not saying chalk this as an L. I'm just the analysis and seeing what they've been forced to do. These guys are getting more opportunities on a more frequent basis right now. So they're finding a group. Some of these guys are pitching almost every other day. First and third game of the series, day off. Then they might pitch game 1, or first and third, game 1 off with no travel day. And then they're pitching game 2 in the middle series of a set of 3. So they're getting, they're pitching day off, but they're not exceeding for the most part, at least that I could have seen. He's not come out and said, so-and-so is not eligible for tomorrow. Well, obviously, if a guy throws an inning and a third, and he throws 40, 45 pitches, he's most likely not going to be available the next day. But you would almost, because they're bullpen guys, you would just expect them to not pitch the next day unless they were absolutely pressed into service. But with the new positional player amended rule for pitching, that's kind of helped that out a bit in terms of totally depleting your bullpen in a blowout loss.
All right. Troy says most of our salary. He's on this one. Al Avila was the worst GM in Detroit sports history. These rosters have outperformed
Matt Millen.
Greater than expected these last few years. I mean, Al Avila, when you look at who we
have
playing,
some of these
they're all here. When you look at Carpenter, Green,
Scooble,
Faeda,
Green.
I mentioned Green, but a lot of these guys right now are, because when you look at Harris guys, you're thinking Vierling, Malloy.
Vierling was trade.
Right, but I'm saying that Harris went, and got him.
Acquisition. I got you.
So right now, I mean, Ibanez is a Harris guy as well. on the acquisition tip. So Tyler Holton is a Harris guy, but yeah, I don't want to get too far into that. Let's see what else he has. It says most of our salaries, Javi Baez, Kenan Maeda, and Miguel Cabrera. There's nothing a manager can do with that.
Well, Miggy he's only got a couple, like what, 5-6 million this year they're paying him. So I mean, that's a drop compared to Baez and Maeda. But the thing with Baez that hurts, it was all that the guaranteed portion. So once he signs and agrees, that's you send that away immediately, regardless of whether the contract gets played out or not in terms of the years agreed. So, but it's certainly better than what it was, when they had Victor, Miggy, JV still. Yeah, they had some other guys making at least 15 million a year or more, but I guess we're in the bargain era with Scott Harris and Chris Ilitch.
Yeah, they're gonna keep putting that pressure on though. We're gonna take a break and then we're gonna get to the roster transactions for real this time. All right, Coach, take it away.
So yeah, a lot of this were flurries and bunches here. So right after the Little League World Series game a week ago yesterday, Justin Hunter Malloy, we knew someone was going to be sent down because they allowed a +1 for each team for that game specifically. So he was sent down to Toledo to return to the regular 26-man roster. Gio, who had been DFA'd, was claimed also on that same day and signed by Atlanta. The 19th, Toronto claimed lefty reliever Easton Lucas, who we had also DFA'd in those flurry moves prior to the week. On the 22nd, Tigers recalled Sean Gunther, who's made a few appearances since then. Faedo oddly went on the paternity list for a couple days and then went on the 15-day IL with a right shoulder strain, retroactive to the paternity list. I'm not sure what happened there, but that's certainly not a common, if not a very uncommon combo there. But I'm not going to read too much into that at this point. 23rd, the Tigers recalled Ryan Kreidler and also placed Javi Baez on originally the 10-day IL. And as you heard earlier before the show, Baez was moved to the 60-day IL, effectively ending his season as he will be having hip surgery next week, in addition to dealing with the continued lower lumbar spine inflammation that he had endured back earlier in the summer around May. They're hoping, I'm guessing, with that hip surgery, that'll even out the spine inflammation and issue as well. Additionally, on the same day, they signed center fielder Oscar Mercado to a minor league deal and then assigned him to AAA. Looks like more of a depth move with the call-ups we had additionally prior to that over the last week, 10 days. And then as well to make room for Ty Madden, reliever Brian Sammons was returned back to Toledo. So we'll see. We know next week is September after Memorial Day here. So we'll probably see a few more call-ups at that point, who they are. We'll see. So stay tuned for that.
All right. And that parlays perfectly into our next segment. I don't have a lot to talk about as far as down on the farm. Obviously, we got a lot of guys. A lot of our guys are already in the major leagues, so there isn't a whole lot to talk about. But I think, did Max Clark hit a home run this week, or was that last? I want to say he hit it.
He did. It was like earlier in the week, but I think he's got 2 or 3 now.
Not a whole lot. Yeah. And our guy Tater hit another Tater as well. There was a player on West Michigan. Let me see if I can.
The catcher. Catcher's hit a few home runs in the trade that we got.
Oh yeah. He was awarded with Player of the Week not too long ago. But they have is he a first baseman? It says that he's listed as a second baseman, but quietly Luke Gold is having a pretty strong year at single A. I think he plays first base and second base maybe, but he's leading the team right now with 13 home runs and 53 RBIs. He's 23 years old, and he was drafted 2 years ago out of Boston College. Just a name to look at, but yeah, for the most part, you got guys like Malloy and Madris and Navigado still, maintaining their roles, waiting for an opportunity to possibly get called up in September. Malloy is definitely a guy that I would like to see come back for when the roster's expanded. And then I don't know if there's any room for a Bly Madris at this point, but certainly if not him, I'd like to see Andrew Navigado, especially now that we're down a middle infielder, and with McKinstry getting a lot of playing time in the outfield, especially against righties. Maybe that opens up an opportunity for Navigado to be called up, because he's been pretty consistent all year long. Let's see what Troy's talking about here. He said we had 2 number 1 picks and have nothing to show for it also. Okay, so that's what Torque and Mize. Mize is another guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mize has been looking good in his rehab. He should be coming back in September. And Wensil Perez started running as well. I don't know if they rush him back, if that's even worth it, but we'll see about that. See what else, Troy. I wish it was one of those years like last year where we would still be in the race. Were we in the race last year?
I feel like we made it interesting because we were so far back heading into the All-Star break that we were pretty much, I think a lot of us wrote off our season at that point. Like, well, that is what it is, and we're dog water this year. But yeah, I mean, we've had top picks over the last several years before.
We've been bad, we've been bad for a long time. So yeah, we've had.
It hasn't really mattered who's the GM. I mean, if he's made the right pick and we can't develop, then that really falls onto the developmental staff in terms of minor leagues and all the way to the pro level if they get there. We talked about Steven Moya earlier in the year as another one of those guys. You can go back to, Matt Anderson, unfortunately, was more injury related in a freak accident. Not really accident, but a freak injury, if you will. But they've whiffed a lot under different GMs over the last decade and change. So, I mean, I'm not really going to put that on one coach or so, or one GM, but yeah.
He says 500 is pretty good. The guys are showing a lot of hurt. I agree. Yeah,
the kids are out there having fun. I mean, they know they're playing with house money. They got nothing to lose for the most part. Obviously, there's a majority of those guys that are almost assuredly going to have a spot out of spring training next year. So, some of these other guys, like we've mentioned, might be kind of doing a tryout potentially to gain some interest from other clubs to be acquired via trade versus free agency, like a Bly Madris type player like that. People were incensed that Kreidler was the one called up instead of Navigato prior to the Baez, announcement today or even the day before about him going on the 10-day IL. And it's like, well, you kind of look at Navigato, and I believe, if not, was he not also hurt earlier in the year along with Jackson Jobe? And a lot of people on social media I saw over the last few days were irate that neither one of those two had been called up yet. But, in terms of Jobe, front office has been very clear about it. He's not coming up until next year, which I fully expect him to have a spot in the rotation day one next year.
Yeah, which is why it's so imperative for Montero to pitch well down the stretch, as well as Ty Madden. Ty Madden is Rule 5 eligible, so they'll have to put him on the top. They'll have to put him on that 40-man in order for him to be protected from other teams. Even though I don't know how much they would clamor to go after a Ty Madden, but he is a top draft pick player who a team might take a flyer on and say, "Oh, I can see some potential, or see how we can." Fix them, and then there you go. One of your top, draft picks is gone somewhere else. So, yeah, should be interesting. But the Angels aren't great. This is a Troutless Angels team, and if we can handle business today and sweep the Angels. I mean, I don't know how many games we'll make up, but I feel like the teams ahead, some of the teams ahead of us are starting to slow down a little bit. So it leaves some wiggle room for us to make some moves. Albeit we don't have a lot of time left to make it happen, but it is what it is. It more than likely will fall short of it, but having semi meaningful games to be playing for late in the year is a step in the right direction for a team that was expected to probably make another, take a step up this year. And I'll continue to reiterate, Scott Harris needs to see the potential from our core to build around it. And he's gonna have to answer that one way or another if we end up finishing 4 games behind in the wild card. Like, okay, what do you need to see now? Jackson Jobe is coming. Like, Clark McConaughey and Hyu Lee. These guys are on the way. Hyu Lee could possibly be a October, September call up next year. So yeah, it's always good to just win as many games and to continue to claw and fight late in the year. But we're gonna take our last break and get back to it. So, well, I saw an interesting statistic referring to some of the defensive metrics for some of our rookie infielders. I'll start with Trey Sweeney, who has a +2 outs above average total defensively. He's a guy that they kind of said that he was, he's a respectable, serviceable shortstop, but they don't expect him to be a long-term option, which he may not be. It's going to determine, I think, a lot on whether or not he can hit or not at the next level. But yeah, he's made some pretty nice. He's made some pretty nice plays thus far this season, so that's encouraging. We talked about Colt Keith, who struggled a lot earlier in the year. He is at a +2 outs above average, which I would not have guessed. Obviously, he's improved a lot since the beginning of the year, but another plus defender. But Jace Young at third, -1 outs above average. He's had some wild throws over there. And obviously, this is his first full year of action playing at second base. He actually won a Gold Glove, the Gold Glove equivalent at the AAA level last year at second base. So we know that he can. We know that he has the ability to play defense. But yeah, he's definitely struggled with some of the throws over at third base. So yeah, -1 outs above average for him. But Coach, who do we have on the agenda? Well, I saw a couple. Obviously, we got the games coming up on the agenda, but also I think you did a projection of the Skubal starts. I love to attend those Skubal games. So
yeah, so I just kind of did that kind of freehand, but we do have a little bit of additional breaking news. The Tigers PR X account, in addition to the Baez move and Brian Sammons, there were some other moves additionally as well that they've made in the last hour. So they did recall Mason Englert, and they placed Will Vest on the paternity list. So that's the other up and down move. Mason Englert up, Will Vest is on the paternity list. And man, I guess these guys are just, they're getting after it in the offseason.
Hey, so no doubt about it.
Congratulations.
Don't come back with a shoulder injury, please.
Yeah. I'm not going to speculate on that with Faedo, but to Faedo and Vest, congratulations on the growing family for them. But yeah, I was just kind of based on the 6-day, not throwing every 5 days. If Hinch holds to that, essentially he's going to get 2 less starts from the point in which he announced it after the Little League World Series game against the Yankees. Otherwise, he would have had 2 more starts. But as of right now, they do have 2 confirmed. Boston on the 30th, in San Diego, I believe, for the matinee game, the rubber match game on the 12th, just because there's a day off for travel in that, which sounds like 7 days, but it's 6 games. I think that's kind of what he's going for. And then it would be home against Colorado on the 18th of September, and then ending 18th versus Case. Sorry, I messed those dates up. August 30th against Boston, the 5th of September at San Diego, September 12th at home against Colorado, the 18th against the Royals, and then he would end at home on the second to last, I believe, home series against the Tampa Bay Rays. If he had gone on the 5 days, he would be pitching 2 more starts. But ironically, they play 2 of their 3 or 4 final series against the Orioles. He will not see one of the better AL teams other than the Yankees in the Orioles.
All right. What we got left on the agenda? Anything to chop it up? Were we going to discuss any or do some preliminary stuff about the awards?
Quickly, as we kind of we'll discuss a little bit later, but just to get a general idea of Detroit's offseason and how busy Scott Harris will be just with his own 40-man, these are the players that are arbitration eligible heading into this year, so they have team control. And I'm just going to go through these real quick. We're not going to really harp on these, but this is a lot of players that he's going to have to make decisions with, go to arbitration if they don't agree, including some pre and club options, as Foster alluded to earlier. So arbitration standard, you got Baddoo, Skubal, Roger, Manning, Foley, Ibanez, Vierling, McKinstry, Vest, Brisky, and the newly signed Marcado. Pre-arbitration, we've got Englert, Green, Torkelson, Carpenter, Holton, Olson, Meadows, Wentz, Faedo, Gibson Long, Brendan White, and Ryan Kreidler. Currently, the club options they have right now are Casey Mize for $3.1 million next year, or $10,000. I don't really want to call it a buyout, but I think it's just an exchange. If they do not pick up the option, that's the agreement contractually. And then Shelby Miller has a $4.25 million club option, and I believe it looks like about $250,000 buyout or payout if they choose not to pick it up at that time. But yeah, if you want to go team awards, just some things we'll do a little bit later on in September. We'll probably do a separate episode just for these. We'll look at rookie of the year for him and I individually, starting pitcher, relief pitcher, just because there's been so many. Just to pick one pitcher of the year, we know Skubal would win.
Hands down.
Yeah. Also, offensive player of the year or non-pitcher, and we'll choose as well as it looks right now 2 defensive Gold Glove candidates for the team itself. And as we get closer to the playoffs, we'll take a look at the playoff picture, who we think will win, who we'd like to see win, and maybe some other league-wide awards as well.
All right. So packed a lot into 45 minutes. I feel like we've covered a lot, but we didn't really drag the show too much, which is good. That's good for the viewers. And I appreciate that we've had a lot of we maxed out about 5-6 live viewers watching at one time. And of course, our boy Troy always taps in and gives us some conversation to talk about. For anybody that's new to the channel, because I did share it into the Tigers Facebook group, and there's a lot of engagement within there. It gets muddy sometimes, but please subscribe to the channel. We do a live show every week, either on Sunday or Monday. We put out content all week, player profiles and updates for any injuries and stuff like that. And we also have audio content. Everything that we do live goes onto our podcast platform, whether you're getting it from Apple Music, Spotify, all of those different things. So you can find us on either, on anything anything that has audio platforms, just type in corner to Copa and it'll come up. That fine logo that my guy Dave created will pop up when you see it. But yeah, the Tigers are one game away from sweeping the Chicago White Sox and getting to 500. We have a homestand coming up after that, after a day off on Tuesday, and we have the opportunity to make some moves. We're a considerably hot team right now. We definitely got 3 in a row right now, and we played pretty well against the Yankees. Did we lose that series too? Did we lose that series?
No, we won 2 out of 3 because they won that rubber match in extra innings.
Right.
And,
we won Saturday.
that.
Right.
We won
the game on ESPN, and then we won.
Whatever one goal Cole didn't pitch, we won before Sunday.
Right. Friday. We lost Friday. We got shut out on Friday, and then we won the second two. So we've been pretty hot as of late. And that was coming off of the sweep of Seattle as well, which is just crazy. Like, whew.
And they're still ahead of us despite everything and firing Scott Service too. So
it's crazy.
Yeah, but you alluded to it. Yeah, they got Boston. Yep, and Chicago, LA Angels. They go to Boston comes to town. They go out west to Slam Diego, and then they make their final ever trip to the Coliseum to visit the Oakland A's before we get a little bit further into September. But yeah, also, check us out on Twitter. Handles at roar_84. You'll see the name is Corner to Copa with the same logo. We're putting up some polls, some questions. Go ahead, feel free to jump over on X and engage there as well as we continue to increase our interaction with all of you on that platform as well.
Absolutely. So you definitely want to tune in to the game tonight as we try to sweep. And we also played the White Sox in the last series of the year as well. So that might be another opportunity to pad the stats a little bit going into the off season. But yeah, we're signing out. It's your boy Foster Child. I got my guy Coach. Tune in until next time.
Take it easy, everyone.